the state used to not have an exemption where the same household was sick. Now you only have to get it. Which makes sense.
Yeah,
And I haven't heard anything today, so that's good so far.
I said something to the nursing staff because I have a chicken pox in a long time. I expected it gets warmer bodies and
Yeah.
bed bugs and some of those things. Chicken pox wasn't on my horizon.
No.
So they can stay north of us.
Had a child and a parent. I was like, that's unusual. And,
All right, well, good morning and welcome. Our biweekly press conference, COVID press conference. Today we're joined, as usual, by Dr. Remington and Teresa Reed from the Kosciuszko County Health Department. Kirk Carlson's here from the Bowen Center testing site and hotline, and Dr. David Hofford from Warsaw Community Schools. 12 days left of school, right,
12
Dr.
days,
Hofford?
but nobody's counting.
Well, good to have you. So I'll just start off quickly. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew that we have a Homeland Security / Indiana Department of Health mobile clinic down at Central Park. Actually, they're giving the second shots for the Pfizer vaccine that was started last month. They are also taking walk-ups. So their hours are from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Through Saturday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 more days through 6 p.m. They will take walk-ups. It's the Pfizer vaccine, and we're excited to have them. I just visited down there. They did 350 second shots yesterday. So they're keeping busy getting those second vaccinations done, and they do have enough vaccine to take walk-ups. So be advised. So that's a good thing, and hopefully we can all take advantage of that. So got a lot to talk about this morning. I'm going to pivot to Dr. Remington from the Health Department. I know he will give us his biweekly updates, and I'm sure he's got a lot of updates on vaccinations and everything else. So, Bill?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. Thank you again for having the Health Department represented here. Let me talk about our COVID cases. The epi curve is improved. We have an additional couple hundred cases over where we were 2 weeks ago. Another couple deaths since we last met. Our first case, as a reminder, was March 26, 2020. We are under a yellow advisory per the State Department of Health, but a little bit blue, which is good. If we stay at the current metrics another week, we will be under a blue advisory next week. That reflects a decreased positivity rate. Our positivity rate is at 3.7% as compared to 4.2% the last time we met. At our worst, we were 26% in November, so big change. On the average, 6 new cases a day on a 7-day rolling average. At our worst, we were at 134. We were at 17 2 weeks ago, so a little softening. I was concerned in District 2, which is South Bend and Elkhart. Their hospitalizations were up the last time we met. They are down now. So a reassuring graphic that you may see at the State Department of Health website. When you click on our county or Elkhart County and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the hospitalization curve has softened, which I think is really encouraging. As far as vaccines, the state of Indiana has given 4.5 million doses. 2 million Hoosiers are now fully immunized compared to 1.7 million fully immunized 2 weeks ago. Here in Kosciuszko County, we've seen 22,000 of our residents have at least one dose, which is 35% of our population 16 and older. 19,000 are fully immunized. That's up another 2,700 from 2 weeks ago. That 19,000 is 30.2% of our 16 and older population in Kosciuszko County. We are seeing Again, a little softening of interest in vaccine at our health department clinic since we started our immunization effort in the middle of middle of January. We've administered 20,000 doses of vaccine. Yesterday, they gave 35 first doses and 222 second doses, just as a little biopsy as to the pace that we're running. So that's about 68% of our capacity if you look over the last week. We're still had been allocated 1,600 doses a week. We are now on a as-needed basis of ordering vaccine with the state. So they changed that strategy a week or two ago. The variants are a topic that we've discussed. They are ticking up as we had discussed last time. There have now been 1,900 total confirmed variants in Indiana, with the B.1.1.7 the most dominant. It doubled over the last 2 weeks from 760 some to nearly 1,500 cases confirmed. And that'll probably continue to kind of double, and you'll see that the variants start to become dominant, I think, in the landscape. That kind of happens a lot with these viral events, so, especially with respiratory viruses that have just a highly mobile genetic engine, and they shift around genetically. Not a major enough shift that we, I think, are worried about in a big way about reinfection or inability to appropriately immunize. Maybe a little softening on both those fronts, but not a disaster with these variants, at least as I read it at this point. The northern Indiana concerns have eased. 2 weeks ago, there were new counties going the other direction under the advisory, Elkhart County, St. Joe County, and some others not too far from us. And again, that plus the Michigan thing was a worry. But that, fortunately, has softened. The Michigan surge, that's an interesting graphic to look at. That was really biphasic, big surge like we had in November, and then what they experienced a month ago was just about as bad. I mean, that was an eye-opener, and it really caused the conservative among us in public health to say, uh-oh, what do we got coming for all of us here? Well, that curve is substantially down. So they peaked a month ago, and it really looks to be in the rearview mirror. And we have not seen it blow up in northern Indiana, and I'm very thankful for that. Pfizer has the FDA under an emergency use authorization approval for younger age groups, 12 to 15 now. They're awaiting the CDC's Immunization Advisory Committee to vote on it, which I believe is today. And barring no problems, that Pfizer vaccine can then be given to younger age groups, which I think will include the FEMA site here in Warsaw this week. Mayor and I were talking just a few minutes ago. It sounds like they're ready to immediately offer that vaccine to younger recipients should they walk in the door.
And I would just jump in, when I talked to them this morning, she advised everyone to just, the state will come out and make a statement on the use of that vaccine at age 12, and that is, they will give the final word. Yeah. So we'll wait for that.
Yeah, wait for the wait for the official word. In general, if you look at the USA immunization map, there is such a thing. Indiana's a bit soft. If you look at Indiana specifically, Kosciuszko County is a little soft. I'm a big fan of vaccines, so please encourage immunization among your friends. There are some safety things to talk about, and those are, I think, front and center in the vaccine discussion right now. What got a little press, from what I understand, is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, VAERS, and their death count post-vaccination with COVID vaccine. So as of the most recent report I could see with VAERS was May 10th, so just a couple days ago. There have been 259 million doses of any COVID vaccine in the United States. And there have been 4,434 deaths reported to VAERS within I think that's a 30-day window. That's 0.0017% of vaccines administered with a death reported to VAERS within a month. That's all that is. It's a reported death. Now, let me just talk about that a little bit. Anybody can report anything to VAERS, whether you're lay or professional, whether it's a proven causality or not, doesn't make a difference. It's a hair trigger for reporting, which is good. It's good for all of us. So there's going to be a lot of scatter, going to be a lot of data points that eventually may be important or may not be important. You just don't know. Thus far, the CDC, as they've looked at those 4,434 deaths, cannot see a direct causality in a systemic way. That is, this vaccine or these vaccines are provoking deaths for sure. Do people die after any point in time in such a large event? Yes, of course they do. We were immunizing a lot of elderly people just a few months ago, right? Now, I don't want to discount that maybe there's an issue to further understand, and there needs to be open discussion, open disclosure, as the FDA and CDC look at all of this. I think they've been fairly open. I don't think they've totally just thrown it under the rug. I feel the vaccines are safe. I feel these are probably associations without clear causation to the vaccine effort. And I really love to see a robust recruiting of both lay and medical people to shout about it if they have any concern post receiving a vaccine or administering a vaccine, whether it be VAERS or other reporting mechanisms. VSafe is a very consumer-driven, really slick platform. I would desire everybody who gets a vaccine, these COVID vaccines, sign up for VSafe. Now, children. So that's one topic. Generally, this issue of post-vaccine administration and a reported death, okay? And my key point here is association is not necessarily causation. You got to be wary of that in the House of Medicine in general. Okay. So the second topic I'd like to bring up in regards to safety is the younger children. Now that Pfizer is likely going to have this 12 to 15-year-old, I think this is a tricky conversation. I'll be very honest with you. I'm a big vaccine guy, and I think there's opportunity to protect vulnerable people at all age groups. As you move lower in the age group, statistically, you don't have as many vulnerable patients, right? And there are a few. There are kids with chronic, complex health conditions that we wouldn't want to have a case of COVID in. But most kids, most teens, most adolescents are pretty healthy. It's always a risk versus benefit with any intervention in healthcare. So here comes now new vaccines that are ushered in expeditiously, I'd say in a good way, but under a unique status, an emergency use authorization. They've had clinical trials of probably thousands of kids, I would imagine, but certainly not millions of kids to look at. There was this little thing that popped up with aberrant antibodies and provoking clots with the vector vaccines, the J&J and the Oxford vaccine in Europe. And that was seen in younger women, specifically 50 and younger. Not the messenger RNA vaccines, not the Pfizer product. But all that to say, I think it's okay, in my opinion, that families are allowed to think about this. If you have a vulnerable, chronically compromised child, absolutely, and they're within this new age eligibility, I would say seek the vaccine. If you're healthy and want to immunize them, fine. I mean, we're pretty confident these vaccines are safe. But maybe it hasn't settled enough now that we're talking about a subpopulation that really is, in an aggregate way, very low risk from a complication of COVID. Are they part of the mixing bowl in our community transmission? For sure. And particularly the little bit older, the 20-year-olds and early 30s, they're definitely part of the community mixing bowl with spreading the pathogen. So it's okay. I don't personally feel we should mandate this COVID immunization effort in these young children just yet. I feel that would create a lot of gnashing of teeth in the population. We probably really don't need to do that. So I'm being very open with two safety issues with these vaccines, because we're at that point with this pandemic where now it's all about the vaccines. I think they're the most effective intervention. It's okay to have some discussion regarding safety. I'm so thankful we successfully immunized those most vulnerable. They really grasped the opportunity to immunize in a large way, the elderly and the older patient who's chronically compromised. Once that's been done and offered robustly, I just felt the weight come off of my shoulders a bit as a public health thinker for this. Vaccines are good, and I would hope there's robust take of the Pfizer vaccine in the eligible age groups, but it's okay to think about it. It's okay. I would hope you don't think that we're ramrodding this, at least in this jurisdiction, at least in my voice as a health department. And I'm a big vaccine guy. So the masks, I think, are still in play, right? We do it for caring for the unprotected, most at risk among us. It'll go away, I think, fairly soon. But just be a good neighbor. I think that's the motif. It's not worth shouting matches over. The epi curve is greatly reassuring to me. Another month now, we've had a chance to watch it. Wasn't sure where we were going to go a month ago, but it really is reassuring to me. I would be shocked if we have a huge surge in the future with what we know of COVID today. So I think we have opportunity to be closer back to normal here in a short period of time. We as a health department have continued to reflexly do what's coming out of the governor's office, and we will follow the latest version of the executive orders and try to generally follow that motif. Interfacing with the schools will continue to be prominent, and if you don't have to look too far down the road to realize what this is going to look like in a few months yet, we will have open conversation. We'll put resources on it for you, Dr. Hoffert and others. We'll all figure this out. I want to mention here, almost forgot to say, we have exciting new opportunities to get vaccine to you. As we've seen a softening in our clinic, we will be ratcheting down. But we can still order vaccine, and we will be using the Warsaw Wayne Fire Department and its credentialed vaccinators to do some mobile clinics. We have a pilot project with one local employer in the next couple weeks, we hope. And we anticipate that will go well. So if you're listening or have connections with an employer or a unique setting you'd like to get vaccine to you, we will try to secure the J&J vaccine, which is a one and done strategy, which is kind of convenient for these mobile approaches. We'll get that on demand. If you're an employer or an organizer and would like to have someone come to you and a number of people at your site, then please contact the health department or the mayor's office and see if we can't work this out. Again, our pilot project with this is just a few days away. We see that as a great opportunity. Thanks for offering that, Mayor.
Yeah, I would just add, I would ask if you do have that interest, and the one that we're doing right now will be for a specific industry or a specific factory in the community. So that's just another option. I would ask that you call the health department. Bob Weaver. Bob has been involved in getting these set up. If you call the mayor's office, we'll certainly pass that along.
Okay.
But Bob has done a great job getting this together, and I know our guys at the Fire Territory are excited to be able to get involved and go out in what I would consider to be a very efficient way to get this done and provide service and offer employees that benefit. So thanks for mentioning that, Dr. Remington. Teresa.
Doc did a great job
Yeah,
covering
you have to
all
follow
kinds of
that.
things. Yeah, I know. I'm really pleased with how things are going. I'm pleased with our numbers and really excited about finally feeling a little more balanced here and a little more normal. I'm going to continue to watch those numbers, stay on top of it. We're watching the variant cases. The state gives me information on those variant cases, and so I look at them and see what's happening. We do have, I'll talk about breakthrough cases because it's actually it's reassuring. We do have breakthrough cases, and that's where somebody has been fully vaccinated for at least 2 weeks and they still get COVID. But we've had 11 breakthrough cases with almost 19,000 vaccines given. So that's a great number, even though, it's not perfect. We don't think vaccines are perfect. And so we'll be watching that to see where that's going as time goes on. And I'll tell you what, I missed children during the pandemic. Yeah, you've had them in school, but I haven't had much opportunity to see children in a long time, it seems like. Not very often. And it's so exciting to see their little spring sports springing up. And, T-ball, yard goats are my favorite team. So just let's enjoy the spring and enjoy as we have a little more normality here. That's what I got.
Great. Thank you. Said well. The yard goats.
Yard goats.
Yeah.
Yard
You have
goats.
to watch for them.
I wonder-
Do they make it to the paper or
I'm not sure.
I want to see their jerseys.
Yeah, I was just going to
It's
say, I
on
want
their
a jersey. We need some
jerseys,
swag.
Yeah. They have jerseys, yard goats. I'm like, what does that say?
All right.
Seller.
Well, thank you. Kurt, testing and hotline and anything else you want to talk about?
Sure. And again, we're hovering right at about that 200 tests per week. That's been fairly consistent always. Monday is twice as many tests as any other day of the week, Monday through Friday, and usually in the morning. Bob Weaver got a hold of me here earlier this week and said the state has requested proposals for continuing testing through July through the end of December. We submitted a proposal that Bob then in turn submitted to the state. That would be for 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday, so essentially 10 to 2. We believe we can keep up with the demand during that time because, again, we see the biggest spike first thing in the morning and then it tapers off to nothing in the afternoon. By end of day, the staff don't see a single car coming through. So with that anticipation, not wanting staff to just stand around and have nothing meaningful to do, We're starting next Monday, we're going to reduce the test site hours to that 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Again, we believe we can keep up with the demand. Dr. Hoffert's here, and Warsaw Schools is one of our big customers. And I think we want to continue to be a service to all the schools that need that testing service, as well as other persons in the community. And the same thing, we'll be reducing the call hotline to those same hours, 10 to 2. I think that's the best utilization of our staff. We're still getting a handful of calls, not nearly as many as we did for the first few months that we had the hotline. So again, we believe that we can sustain the service and meet the demand by reducing to those hours on those days. Again, people continue to appreciate having the availability of that service, and we're wanting to do that. And again, Teresa mentioned, and again, the vaccine is 95% effective. It's not 100%. So we continue at Bowen Center to wear our masks. Those people who have been vaccinated, they can be in the same room and not have to wear masks if they're social distancing. So we're beginning to just reflect that reality as more people get vaccinated. We really need to be lightening up on the mask requirements. But we still want our staff to be conscientious about that, because again, it's 95%, not 100% effective. I think that's it, Mayor.
All right. And I just want to throw something in. I know we talked about the pavilion clinic going on right now, the state clinic down there with the walk-ups. Dr. Remington and I were chatting before the meeting, and I think you had mentioned that most of the pharmacies that are offering the vaccination are now also allowing walk-ups. Is that correct?
Yes, our immunization nurse, Jeannie, called around, and you have a variety of vaccine opportunities at local pharmacies that I hope you'll find convenient for you. And they take walk-ups. All of them that she phoned that offer COVID immunization take walk-ups now.
Yeah, and I know that registration is nice and preferred and with the hotline, but as I'm sitting here thinking, with now us starting to pivot to more on-demand walk-up type vaccinations, that pre-registration is becoming maybe a little less critical. Don't want people to feel encumbered by that. So just good to know that just about everywhere the shots are available, you pretty much walk in and ask for the shot. So appreciate that. Thank you. Dr. Hoffert, what's going on out at Warsaw Community Schools? You guys have certainly had a great year keeping the balance, which has been very difficult in this thing, and our applause for following, which we think our community has done a good job, and you've been a big part of that. So good to see you guys getting through the school year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it couldn't be done without the people that are around this. I guess this isn't a table, but around this, whatever you want to call it, semicircle that we have here. Because without the local health department, again, Dr. Remington, Teresa, you've been with us every step of the way. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your incredible support. Bowen Center, as you said, I mean, stepping in with the testing and really what we've been able to do inside of Warsaw Community Schools. I will say that this has probably been the most challenging year in 176 years of history of Warsaw Community Schools. But I can also say that it's probably been one of the most rewarding years that we have ever had as well. When we look at our teachers, they are definitely ready for a break. When I look at our students, they've just been so thankful. And what you were saying, we don't have the yard goats, but we have the tigers everywhere this year, whether it's the baseball team, softball team, tennis teams, golf teams, track and field. They've just been so ecstatic to be able to be involved. The academic teams, we had the speech team at our board meeting last night, and these are all things that were canceled this time last year. So we look at our students and we look at just the excitement that we have. We have 12 days left, but those 12 days are incredibly packed with normal activities of the end of the year. That's the exciting part. We have prom this weekend. We are expecting a great event inside of prom, and we are holding that outside at right over at the fairgrounds, right next to the channel. And our students, our juniors and seniors, are just ecstatic about being able to have prom and being able to do this. Again, that's a normal type of activity. Graduation is right around the corner. So really our focus is on here, the end of the school year. Dr. Remington, thank you so much for what you are saying about the vaccine with children, because we are trying to mirror that approach. Our goal as Warsaw Community Schools is to provide information and then really have parents talk with their local health providers on what that means for students. Up until this point, it was 16 to 18, so that was really our junior and senior age students. But now that again, the CDC is looking at 12 to 16, really relying on the healthcare professionals on whether that is relevant for them. You know, there are always questions and there are always rumors out there about mandates with vaccine. I have heard nothing of a mandate from the state or federal level when it comes to vaccine for children. I know our local school board and our local administration really sides on the go and talk to your local healthcare provider and find out whether that is a relevant vaccine and whether that is the right thing to do for school-age children. And so again, that will be the stance that Warsaw Community Schools takes inside of it. For our staff, they've been very grateful for the local health department, for the different vaccination clinics. We do have a number of employees that are at risk, that have at-risk factors. So being able to get them involved even from the early stages of this has been so critically important to keeping our schools open. So that's really where we're at right now. We're looking forward to a great summer. We're looking for more normalcy every single day. We expect that to be the case as we head into the next school year. Right now, we are under the governor's executive order until 7/1, and once again, we fully expect even more normalcy every day as we continue forward towards that.
Great. It's all good to hear. All good news. Tigers and the yard goats, I think.
Tigers and the yard goats.
The theme for today.
I don't know if that's a good match.
Let's get on with the baseball, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
Right,
they're
Nick?
out, they're out moving, they're in the fresh air, they're good.
Yes.
All right. Anything before we start taking questions you want to articulate or
Maybe I can just comment, we were requested by the Wagon Wheel to do testing on all of their cast members, all the orchestra, which we're in the process of doing. So that's another organization that will probably be open for business. And I know the community is very much looking forward to having the Wagon Wheel available. There's pent-up need to get out and get back to normal as much as possible. The Wagon Wheel's a great asset for this community.
Great, thanks. Appreciate that. So let's open it up for questions. Nick, News Now, 1480.
Dr. Remington, going back on when you were talking about VAERS, I got my second vaccine about a week ago now, and I got an email regarding VAERS, and I think really the biggest side effect I had was being very lethargic, more or less. I didn't have anything that was more or less related to when I got sick with COVID. With smaller side effects like that, would it still be helpful if I were to use that platform to report that I had lethargy after the second vaccine, or is it
Sure.
not something that's as severe as other cases have been?
I'd say use it. It should be a hair trigger. Just let them know. It's not for us to figure out how they're going to staff all those millions of comments. That's their job. And let them collate it. I'm sure they're very sophisticated in how they can sort that all out. Sure, if you feel it's something you experienced, let them know. What I sense you're describing a typically seen, immune stimulation like what they call the reactive symptoms. And that's well understood at this point. So I wouldn't say it's critical that you report it, but sure, let them know. If you were given the V-Safe platform for your cell phone for reporting, that makes that really easy to do. I think they'll come to you and begging, how you doing? Did you have any symptoms? And then you can just type in real quick your symptom.
Hey, Dr. Remington, can I ask you to clarify something? Association is not causation. Maybe make that a little bit easier to understand.
Yeah. So you go out on a winter day, as the whole town did, and you happened to all, or some of you, you all went to a restaurant, let's say, and you came home, and within 3 days, this is January, 500 of you went to restaurants. And 2 days later, it's understood that 10 people have colds. It's January. Can we say that it's because these people went to the restaurants that they got their cold? You can't. Or if they had all gone shopping that week for groceries, and 10 people that week reported they came down with colds, 500 people, so let's say 200 people come down with colds the next week, 500 people went grocery shopping on Saturday. 100, 200 of them reported colds to their family physicians the next week. Is that causation? That is, because they went grocery shopping, they got colds in January. Or is it simply an association? They go grocery shopping. They go get vaccines. And something happens. And that is so tricky. And we're so tempted to think, because of an association, there's causation. But you can't think like that formally in medicine. It can tweak your attention and ask you to ask a series of next questions to try to clarify. That's our duty. But you got to be so careful that you just don't jump to a causation over an observation of an association. I don't know if that clarified it or not.
Well, so all those VAERS reports don't necessarily.
Lots of people are reporting in VAERS. I mean, I don't think to pitch VAERS to people when we give flu shots in the fall, and a number of those people will not be there in the spring. But here we have a novel vaccine strategy with novel products, an unprecedented vaccine in scope and size in this country. What did I say? 260 million doses to date as of 2 days ago in this country. That's a lot. So people will die within a month of receiving a vaccine, particularly if you started out doing the older cohorts, right? Instead of going grocery shopping, they went and got their vaccine on Saturday. Well, some of them didn't make it to the end of the month. Okay. Is it because of the vaccine, or you just can't tell? Now, again, an observation can open eyes. It's okay to think like that and to dig in and try to understand it at the depth that you can. Because you want to look for causation. You want to understand that. That's why all of these hair triggers in the safety net of reporting with adverse vaccine events. You want to hear from Nick and his achiness and fatigue. So what if you get 1 million of those? You can maybe quickly, strategically figure out a way to administrate that. But you also want to catch someone who says, I had this odd venous clot in my brain 2 weeks after my Oxford vaccine in Sweden. And my goodness, there's been a couple hundred of these. Yeah, millions of doses, but what is this? All right, so yeah, you're gathering a lot of other information, but you want to see that, right? So you need a hair trigger in the safety net or the whole thing doesn't work. And I think our deaths with VAERS are getting caught up in that. Again, keep our eyes open, look for causality. But I think it's getting caught up in the robust recruitment of hearing about stuff post your vaccine, which is a very good strategy, and it's novel to pitch that so strongly with a vaccine strategy in this country. We don't do that with flu shots every fall. Okay. So there's a positive bias, if you will. We're going to hear some bad stuff. There's going to be an association, and it's for really careful thinkers to figure out if there's causality in the midst of that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Teresa, we got a question online about these breakthrough COVID patients. Do you have any thoughts or anecdotal information or statistical information on how sick those folks get, maybe post-vaccine?
It varied, and I do know that. I think we had 4 that were asymptomatic, 7 that were symptomatic. Their age range was from 21 to 86 years old with an average age of 58. 3 were hospitalized. 1 was for extremity pain, so that doesn't seem to be related. 1 had what seemed to be respiratory symptoms, and 1 I don't remember, but I thought of causality did not seem to add in there. It didn't make sense. But they were all tested. Those were tested out of the hospitalized. They were tested because they're going into the hospital, and we still test everyone for COVID then. So they were found. So that's been the variance. There were 3 that were hospitalized. Those were on the elder end of the scale. So again, as we look at association versus causation, that's one of the things, that's why we're keeping track of it, to see if we do see ties that were significant. But does that, I think, answer most of that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I know early on when these vaccines came out, they were touted as being, 90, 95% effective. Well, there's always going to be that 5 to 10% that it's not effective. So again, I don't believe the breakthrough cases are something to be concerned about as long as they're statistically in line.
Right, and that's why we just wanted to keep track of those, while we can locally, the numbers are, look at them, tease them apart. I talk to the IPs at the hospital, check some records, and that way, just so we have the monitoring of that situation.
Comments on that? Okay. All right.
Well said.
Nick, any other? Okay. Mr. Spalding, ink free.
Good morning. First off, I've noticed that all of our panelists are mask-free while all of the media are. So I'm curious, is there a shift there now, maybe, Dr. Remington?
I walked in with a mask.
As did I.
I walked in with a mask.
I just took it off once I
Yeah.
sat here.
Yes, we all have them. I have
Spatial
two.
distance, if you were sitting right here, I probably would keep my mask on.
I think that's a good question because that kind of underscores a lot of the just being practical about this as you've espoused through this whole thing. If we're in a building and we've got shields or we're keeping our distance and been vaccinated, I think people certainly can make their decision. But our sign in our building says, when you come in, we want you to mask up.
Right.
And then when you get into your work situation, if you're in a position where you're not threatening or being threatened with potential exchange of virus, it's okay to take it off. And I think the governor's referred to that as well when he talks about masking. And I know some buildings that I go into now, they've taken the sign down. And some that I go into still have the sign up, and I respect that. So
Dan, if you were in my private home, knowing that you were immunized, you had mentioned that publicly, you were immunized here a few weeks ago, as did Nick today, and I'm immunized, I would say, neither of us need masks, really. Even though we're indoors, we're protected. We may not perfectly know if we're able to transmit it to others, but the risk is really low post-vaccine for both of us. But if we're in a public building with a sign on the door, then I'd wear a mask. Fine, we'll just do that, And I think it's just out of this courtesy mindset and just keep the long view that we'll be done with this eventually. Let's try to keep our heads on until then. And let's try to still be friends with those we're friends with today. A year from now, let's not lose them over COVID details, right? Because this will be in the rearview mirror. And people, most of them around us, will not be in the rearview mirror. They'll be around us. So we want to just do the right thing, be the right way for a little bit here. We're in this funky gray zone. Teresa and I have had this conversation so much in my office right now with the pandemic, which is a good thing. I'm glad we're still not entrenched with what we were experiencing in November. Oh my goodness, you know. So it's okay. It's good actually to be in a funky gray zone with some of this and debating whether we really need to keep doing this. It'll go away eventually.
Also, I did want to get your reactions. The Indiana General Assembly overrode the governor's veto on a certain bill that now shifts the responsibility of making decision-making, correct me if I'm wrong, from the health experts to city council or county commissioners. I guess it won't have much impact on the existing pandemic, but I'm curious to hear your reactions and how that could impact the next pandemic.
Well, I sit on the board of one of the public health advocacies for the state, and we were disturbed with this. Now, I would say that I think you've got to keep your head on as a health officer, that you got to be real careful if you make a unilateral thing without talking to those who the people have elected to responsibilities in your jurisdiction, whether it be a mayor, county commissioners. You need to be eye to eye with them. You need to build consensus as much as you can. If you never take time to do that because you don't have to, then I think you're just begging the kind of thing that went on in the State House with that Senate Bill 5, I think it was. I think it needs to shake out and see, hopefully we can close a bad restaurant that's not working with us when we need to. I think the community would want that. Hopefully we don't have to call an emergency meeting of a council or commissioners to do that. I don't know. We need to see how this shakes out. There comes a time where you do need a really strong public health voice that bucks against commercial interests, you know. I'm sure pasteurization of milk was not a popular thing commercially back over a century ago, you know, but I'm glad my kids grew up. I didn't have to worry about bovine TB in them, you know. So there are times you have to just you have to be an oppositional voice to some degree in public health. That's part of the gig. But you're wise, I think, to work with those who the people have elected around you. Public health, you know, I'm an appointee, an appointed position. I think we need to keep our heads on about that. We're the scientists, hopefully, we're the scientists. We need to bring that voice and have confidence that people are willing to hear. And that takes, time to build that. So, yeah, that Senate bill was a bit of a disappointment. It wasn't unexpected after what we've been through in some of the counties and their I sensed oppositional positioning at times. But hopefully it'll shake out and we'll still have good public health protection when it's all done here.
Yeah, I think we've been very fortunate here locally where that has not been an issue. We've had good open dialogue and discussion. We've been guided, I think, by a governor who has followed the health numbers and statistics from day one. I think that's been critical. Unfortunately, we've all recognized that for many reasons, people have very different ideas and thoughts. There can be some political slant to that. There can be, obviously people have their ideas on their health and their ability to make the decisions about their health, and I respect every bit of that. I've said early on during this pandemic, there are groups of people that have their ideas, and no one is going to change anybody's thoughts or ideas on that. We just have to do what we think's best for the community, and I think for the most part, the health department, the state health department, and our local health departments have done a marvelous job here locally. So I don't view this as a concern because we never have talked about issuing restrictions any greater than what the state has come up with. And that's really what this bill says. It is now up to councils and commissioners to create more stringent restrictions rather than an executive order or directive from the health department. I, too, like Dr. Remington, don't like minimizing the role of the health department. We were in a very difficult situation last year because we didn't know what we were dealing with. And to rely on a political body to make a decision like that seems counterproductive to me. So I really, unfortunately, or however you want to look at it, there were probably some health department officials that maybe went too far, but at the time, nobody really knew. It's easy to look back now and say maybe they did. So I think that's what's happening. Nonetheless, I know there are a lot of people that felt very strongly about someone who's not elected making those decisions, and I understand all of the concerns and ramifications. It's so easy to look back now and take pot shots, if you will. But I know it felt to me like when we were going through this, and I think we all feel the same, we were looking for leadership. We were looking for leadership within our cities and counties and at the state level and even at the national level to try and guide what was hopefully, with the best information available, best for our cities, towns, counties, states, and our nation. And I still, at the end of the day, believe that the health care information, the statistics are now coming to bear fruit. I think if we have COVID again, we'll be much better able to handle this, but something new coming up. Dan, I hope we never have to deal with this. I'm done. I just hope we don't have another pandemic for another, what, Teresa, about every 60 years they come along, or?
I don't know, we've had 2 in 10.
Okay. Well,
12.
yeah, so at any rate, I hope that answers your question. I knew that question was going to come up today, too. I appreciate you asking it. Mr. Sloan, would you like to take the microphone from the Warsaw Times Union and have a question?
Dr. Hopper, yesterday Walsey was going to continue to expand their virtual school for different reasons, including COVID. Does Warsaw schools have any virtual plans going forward into the next school year, or is that an option, or what?
Sure, that's a great question. We actually made an announcement probably about, it would have been our last school board meeting, really looking at our virtual options for next year. Number one, our virtual numbers were very, very low this last year. When students in this community were given the option between distance education and in-person education, we only ended up with about 2% that chose for distance education. At the elementary level, that is extremely difficult to do because it takes really a parent sitting right next to the child. When you think about learning from a screen, even as interactive as it is, especially at that kindergarten, first, second, third grade level, when you're talking about foundational reading skills, it is incredibly difficult. For those reasons, we are not going to be doing a distance education option at the elementary level this next year. At the high school level, we do have a number of our programs that are set up. Much similar to credit recovery and the programming that took place this last year. So that still will be offered at the secondary level, but at the elementary level, again, we're going to be creating plans to be able to bring students back in. We always understand that there are extreme health cases, and we do a number of homebound options for students every year that, because of medical diagnosis, require some sort of modification inside of the school plan. I think cleaning procedures are an easy one. We've learned a lot. We had a lot less cases of flu, colds. Those are just great habits that I think that we have picked up. When it comes to masks, I think, as Dr. Remington stated, we all hope to get back to normal. sooner rather than later, and so I definitely do see an end to that. Right now, again, we're underneath the governor's executive order until 7/1 inside of schools. But just as we are here today, we talk about airplane arms. There are opportunities for students to take off masks inside of the school when they are sitting and when they have the distance. But I do foresee that things will be eased up as long as things go the way that they are. We're all hoping for this next school year. I do believe that the Indiana State Health Department is planning a survey, a statewide survey, was something that I heard here this last week. I don't know for sure. I haven't seen it. But again, talking to parents about some of their expectations that they see statewide for some different health procedures that have been in place. But here locally, again, I do foresee things easing up as we go into this next school year. But again, these will be open conversations that we have with the local health department and state health departments, definitely as we in this school year. Again, our focus is ending well, and then again, starting to plan for next.
Just to clarify, does that mean the school system will implement more permanent cleaning protocols?
I think it's a great question. Yes. Yes, I think when we look at it, there are things that just didn't even exist a year ago. Electrostatic sprayers were a brand new thing that was on the market a year ago. We were fortunate to have a few of them. We were able to go out and get quite a few more of them. When it comes to just cleaning down surfaces, we've learned a lot of how to clean cafeteria tables very fast and very efficiently inside of our schools. Things that, we were always doing, but, COVID helped accelerate those things, and I think they're just great practices. We know that washing hands is great for kids. We know that hand sanitizer is great for students. We know that, even just the way that drinking fountains are set up, we've added a lot of water bottle fillers into our schools because drinking fountains sometimes aren't the most sanitary things that are out there. So again, the more that we can change those things, those are great practices to keep going and what we're doing. So I definitely see our maintenance and custodial staff keeping up with those areas. I definitely see the new disinfectants that we have become accustomed to sticking with inside of our schools and continue forward definitely in those ways.
Also, Mayor, if I may follow in that same line of thinking, what policies have possibly changed permanently in the city going forward?
Well, certainly our ability to have public online meetings will continue. The the legislature has come through with its recommendations for allowing continuation of that. That's probably one of the biggest things. I think, as Dr. Hoffert said, we've all learned a lot through this, and cleaning procedures, and just come flu time every year, it's going to be really nice to know that we can disinfect and clean maybe a lot more efficiently than we could in the past. So.
Thank you.
Last press conference, I asked Kurt Carlson about mental health overall in the community. Now that students are in the school more, what kind of, mental health, the social emotional wellness issues are you seeing at schools now, or is it increase, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a huge issue nationwide, and so it's no different inside of our local schools. The one benefit that we have had is being in person all year. So our students have had access to our guidance counselors. They've had access to again, the help structures that are around as we're looking at some of the data of schools that haven't been in person. It is incredibly alarming. So we're very thankful. Just as last night, we had the big NLC track meet that we were hosting in outside of Warsaw Community Schools, and I had so many parents come up to me and say, you know what, last year my kids were depressed because they were missing their peers, they were missing their friends, they were missing the activities that they were involved in, they were missing that normalcy that we talk about, and they were just saying, thank you. Thank you to our local community. That being said, we have to make sure that we keep our eye on the student and the whole student. And that is so critically important. I mean, we knew that it was important before the pandemic. We know that it's even more critically important during and after the pandemic. It's taken a toll on students. It's taken a toll on staff. We don't know exactly what those outcomes are going to look like because they haven't been developed quite yet inside of what has happened with a student. But we know that, again, those student support structures are in place. We've been working hand in hand with the Bowen Center. We're excited about some new plans even upcoming and potential for this upcoming school year. You know, the CARES Act has really been able to provide us some extra support inside of our schools as we look at even personnel and services going forward here over the next couple of years. We also have a very robust summer school program that's going to be kicking off in June for everybody from preschool age students all the way up to our incoming seniors. Again, we feel like it definitely is an important thing, and thank you for asking that question, David.
That's good. All right. We'll just finish up here with just a couple points to consider. Obviously, as Kurt announced today, testing at the fairgrounds will, starting Monday, will pivot from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and that will be as of Monday. Walk-up vaccinations are available, I believe, at the K21 Pavilion, at the State Clinic down at the Central Park, Center Lake Pavilion, which will go through Saturday from 9 to 6. No appointment required, so I encourage you have that opportunity, take advantage of that. As Dr. Remington mentioned, we will be in the next week or two doing an outreach vaccination clinic at a certain industry in town. If that all goes well, we will continue to offer that as, again, more of an outreach mobile site to give the benefit to certain employers, or as requested, I should say. Not, there's no picking here. If they're interested, please give the health department a call. And finally, I think, as I mentioned last week, or last press conference, we've extended the press conferences through the month of May, and I think probably next, May 26th, will be our last press conference. If things change and we decide to come back, we will do that. We certainly have the option of those press conferences occurring beyond, but I think we've all agreed that we've gotten our messages out. I think the message is pretty clear for the last month or two that, you know, things are starting to improve. We're bound by, again, health department information, rules, regulations, statistics guiding us that we're moving out of this thing. But, you know, the importance of vaccinations can't be overstated. However, I think that message has gotten out, and I think it's up to our community to hopefully respond to that and get to the point where we'll be in the football stands this fall, full, see the yard goats.
Play the Tigers.
Play the Tigers.
Yeah.
But I think our press conferences will end in 2 weeks. We will still continue to get together weekly as a group to make sure that we're still guiding our community in the right direction based on all these changes that continue to occur. And obviously anything that needs to come out, if we feel the need to have a press conference, we will. If we can get the information out through you all and through our social media, we will. We'll do everything we need to do, but the message seems to be now getting repetitive, and we don't want to overstate this. I think everybody knows where we're at now, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we got our meeting scheduled.
Yes.